from firing a real machine gun to crashing motorcycles on stage. These are the wildest Judas Priest moments. Number 10. Judas Priest's first major commercial success came with their 1980 album British Steel, which included iconic hits like Breaking the Law, Living After Midnight, and Metal Gods. During the album's tour, frontman Rob Halford took Theatrics to the next level with a controversial stunt, wielding a real automatic machine gun loaded with blanks during the performance of Genocide. He would spray the crowd with blanks, thrilling and alarming fans alike. However, fire marshals eventually shut down the act, deeming it too risky. There were crowds that looked confused, Halford recalled in Louder Than Hell. You could tell they were thinking, surely to God, that's not a machine gun. Is it plastic? No, it's real. What's going on? Then I'd point it straight at them and start firing. Nobody knew in advance what was going on. So there was this look that was a combination of sheer horror and, oh my God, that's so cool. Number 9. In the early 1970s, Judas Priest was just starting out, and their stage look reflected a blend of velvet and satin androgyny with a scruffy hippie vibe. While they aimed to stand out visually, the band was strapped for cash. Bassist Ian Hill even admitted, "We tried to squeeze our girlfriend's shoes." Their image was still evolving, and it wasn't until the release of 1979's Hell Bent for Leather that they fully embraced the iconic biker aesthetic, leather, studs, and chains that would come to define the heavy metal wardrobe. The ultimate irony? This rugged, hypermasculine look was inspired by Rob Halford, the band's closeted gay vocalist. To get some of these bits and pieces of my clothing, I had to go to the local S&M sex shops in the UK. Halford revealed in Louder Than Hell, the definitive oral history of metal. I could only get the little accoutrements and accessories through these kinds of establishments. I had this whip that went with the outfit. I brought out a whip and whipped the crowd. They'd be shouting, "Whip me! Whip me!" The fact that legions of potentially homophobic headbangers went wild for Halford's performances, unknowingly idolizing a gay man, speaks volumes about both his talent and the era's contradictions. Number 8. Judas Priest's hard-partying lifestyle in the 80s isn't something they reminisce about often, but the tales are legendary. While Rob Halford didn't partake in the usual rock star indulgence of groupies, he found his own ways to let loose, like getting drunk and coked up before gleefully setting off fire extinguishers in hotel hallways. The band's most outrageous drug-fueled escapades occurred while recording at Ibiza Sound Studios in Spain, between 1981's Point of Entry and 1984's Defenders of the Faith. During this time, bassist Ian Hill developed a reputation for recklessness, driving motorcycles into ponds and reportedly destroying about 20 rental cars. But the peak of their chaos came when guitarist KK Downing was hit by a taxi while crossing the street, leading to an unforgettable scene of improvised first aid. Glenn Tipton was on an acid trip, Halford recalled in Louder Than Hell. He plunged his hands into some boiling water while trying to wipe the wounds. Glenn burned his hands, obviously, and KK ended up wrapped in so many bandages he looked like an Egyptian mummy. He couldn't walk for a week. Number 7. In December 1985, a tragic and disturbing incident unfolded in Nevada involving two young men, Raymond Belknap, 18, and James Vance, 20. After spending 6 hours drinking, smoking weed, and listening to Judas Priest's 1978 album Stained Class, the two entered into a suicide pact. Armed with shotguns, they went to a local playground, placed the weapons under their chins, and pulled the triggers. Belknap died instantly, but Vance survived, though the bullet severely disfigured him and caused lasting brain damage. He lived for another 3 years in a severely impaired state before passing away. Before his death, Vance and his parents filed a $6.2 million lawsuit against Judas Priest and CBS Records. They claimed that the band had embedded backward messages in their cover of Spooky Tooth's Better By You, Better Than Me, including phrases like, "Try suicide," "Do it," and "Let's be dead." According to the lawsuit, these subliminal messages allegedly influenced the young men's actions. Number 6. The lawsuit filed by the family of James Vance, one of the young men involved in the tragic 1985 Nevada Suicide Pact, went to trial in July 1990. While the First Amendment protects lyrics as free speech, the prosecution argued that backward masking, alleged hidden subliminal messages embedded in music, did not constitute speech or expression and was therefore not protected by the Constitution. Based on this claim, they held Judas Priest and CBS Records responsible for the deaths. The entire band was subpoenaed, and the prosecution repeatedly played their song, Better By You, Better Than Me, both forwards and backward, in an attempt to uncover subliminal messages like try suicide and do it. Reflecting on the ordeal, Rob Halford later remarked, "The irony was that those two boys loved Judas Priest. So we couldn't figure it out until we got to the courtroom. And within the first couple of days we went, oh, we know what this is about. This is about making a fast buck on something so tragic." The drawn-out trial included expert testimony from audio analysts and subliminal messaging specialists. Ultimately, the judge ruled that the evidence was inconclusive and dismissed the case, bringing an end to one of the most bizarre and tragic legal battles in rock history. Number 5. Even before the traumatic Nevada incident and the subsequent lawsuit, Rob Halford was grappling with severe alcoholism and drug dependency. Part of his struggle stemmed from the frustration of having to remain closeted in a heavy metal scene that wasn't yet accepting of gay culture. "There were nights when I would do so much alcohol and cocaine, I literally thought I was on the verge of crossing over," Halford admitted in Louder Than Hell. The turning point came after the devastating suicide of his boyfriend. Their turbulent, coke-fueled relationship was marked by intense fights that sometimes turned physical. One night, during a particularly violent altercation, Halford stormed out of the house and called a cab to escape. As he got into the vehicle, his boyfriend followed him outside, holding a gun. The man told Halford he loved him. Moments later, he put the gun to his head and killed himself, Halford recounted. The horrific event shocked Halford into action. Soon after, he checked himself into rehab and began his journey toward sobriety. He has remained clean and sober since 1986. Number 4. Rob Halford's last concert with Judas Priest in the 1990s ended in a dramatic and painful accident, but he didn't let it serve as a bad omen for his future. On August 19, 1991, the band performed at CNE Grandstand in Toronto. Halford, as part of the show's theatrics, mounted a Harley-Davidson motorcycle to make his iconic stage entrance amid swirling smoke and dry ice. Typically, the metal stairs would rise at the right moment, allowing him to zip under the stage and reappear with mic in hand. This time, however, the band wasn't ready to start. Unaware that the timing was off, Halford revved his bike and sped toward the stairs, just as they began to rise. It was too late to stop. He smashed into the half-raised stairs and was thrown from the motorcycle, hitting the ground and losing consciousness. We'd started hell-bent for leather, and of course there were no vocals, former guitarist KK Downing recalled to Guitar World. "We didn't know where Rob was, so we played the whole song without vocals. But he came around and managed to finish the show. Afterward, he went to the hospital, and that was the last time I saw him for a long time." Although the accident wasn't directly related, it marked the end of an era for Judas Priest. Shortly after the Toronto show, Halford quit the band amid tensions. He had hoped to take a break to work on a solo project, but the rest of the band was eager to return to the studio. According to bassist Ian Hill, Halford had asked for a 3-year hiatus, which the band was unwilling to accommodate. The disagreement led to his departure, and Halford went on to form the band Fight, leaving Judas Priest to navigate a new chapter without their iconic frontman. Number 3. On February 5, 1998, Rob Halford made history by publicly coming out as gay.
I think that most people know that I've been a gay man all of my life, and that it's only been in recent times that it's an issue that I feel comfortable to address.
A bold move for a figure in the traditionally macho world of heavy metal. While such an announcement might have caused controversy in earlier decades, by the late 90s, the evolving social and political climate allowed the metal god to reveal his sexuality without alienating his fanbase. In an MTV interview, Halford explained, "I think that most people know that I've been a gay man all of my life, and that it's only been in recent times that it's an issue I feel comfortable to address, and an issue that has been with me ever since recognizing my own sexuality." Reflecting on the moment, Judas Priest bassist Ian Hill quipped that Halford's sexuality was the worst-kept secret in heavy metal. Number 2. When Rob Halford left Judas Priest in 1992, the band initially took a hiatus before deciding to forge ahead. After an exhaustive search for a new frontman, they settled on Tim "Ripper" Owens, a vocalist from Ohio who had previously fronted a Judas Priest tribute band called British Steel. With Owens, who bore a striking resemblance to Halford both vocally and stylistically, Priest released 2 albums. The first, Jugulator, leaned into a hard-as-nails sound, while the second, Demolition, veered into down-tuned, desperate territory, ultimately failing to resonate with fans or critics. Around the time Demolition was released, Warner Brothers Pictures became interested in Owens' real-life, rags-to-riches story. After reading a New York Times article about his journey from local musician to Judas Priest's lead singer, they envisioned the story as a Hollywood feel-good movie starring Mark Wahlberg as Ripper and Jennifer Aniston as his love interest. Initially, the band agreed to participate, but as the project evolved into a glossy celebrity vehicle, they withdrew their support and prohibited the filmmakers from using their name. Despite a star-studded supporting cast that included Zakk Wylde, Ozzy Osbourne, Black Label Society, Jeff Pilson Dokken, Jason Bonham, son of Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham, and Brian Vander Ark, the Verve Pipe, the resulting movie, Rockstar, fell flat. Critics and audiences alike dismissed it as cliched and uninspired, a fate comparable to the schlocky spectacle of American Idol contestant James Durbin performing with Judas Priest in 2011. Number 1. After a triumphant reunion tour with Rob Halford in 2003, Judas Priest rode the wave of renewed enthusiasm to release Angel of Retribution in 2005. The album was a return to form, delivering the classic Priest sound that fans and critics alike celebrated. Logically, the next step seemed clear. Continue this momentum with another hard-hitting, propulsive record. Instead, in 2008, Judas Priest took an ambitious and ultimately misguided detour with Nostradamus, a double CD concept album centered on the life of the French seer. Clocking in at nearly an hour and 40 minutes, the album leaned heavily into theatrical storytelling, complete with synthetic orchestral arrangements and a lack of the sharp, memorable riffs that defined the band's best work. Critics derided it as overblown and cheesy, a project that felt more like a misfired Broadway production than a heavy metal record. Perhaps if they'd consulted Nostradamus himself, they might have foreseen the lukewarm reception. Recognizing the misstep, the band wisely limited their live performances of Nostradamus tracks to 1 or 2 songs during the subsequent tour, leaning instead on their beloved classics. Since then, Judas Priest has stuck to a strategy that keeps their iconic hits front and center, a move fans have appreciated ever since. For more wild stories of your favorite celebrities, stay tuned.